Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday edition of Market Mantra, the program in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. My name is Rajesh Lake and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Siddharth Singh.
नमस्कार, आर्थिक खबरों के कार्यक्रम मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है। रोज की तरह हम देश विदेश की आर्थिक गतिविधियों और शेयर बाजारों पर नजर डालेंगे और प्रमुख समाचारों पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। प्रमुख खबरों पर चर्चा के लिए आज कार्यक्रम में आमंत्रित हैं आर्थिक विशेषज्ञ उदयन रे। उदयन, मार्केट मंत्र कार्यक्रम में आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
धन्यवाद। वेलकम उदयन।
थैंक यू राजेश।
सबसे पहले जानते हैं बिजनेस हेडलाइंस राजेश से।
Domestic benchmark indices slide for second consecutive day. Sensex drops 345 points while Nifty settles at 25,355. Most Asian markets end in positive territory today, and global crude oil prices edged lower today amid global uncertainty.
घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में लगातार दूसरे दिन गिरावट दर्ज की गई। सेंसेक्स 345 अंक लुढ़का, वहीं निफ्टी 25,355 पर बंद हुआ। ज्यादातर एशियाई बाजारों में सकारात्मक रुख रहा, हालांकि जापान के निक्केई में गिरावट दर्ज की गई और वैश्विक अनिश्चितताओं के बीच अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों में कच्चे तेल की कीमतें घटीं। जी हां, अब खबरें विस्तार से। साप्ताहिक डेरिवेटिव्स की समाप्ति से पहले बढ़ी अस्थिरता के दबाव में घरेलू बेंचमार्क सूचकांकों ने आज लगातार दूसरे सत्र में गिरावट का सिलसिला जारी रखा। बाजार की सुस्त चाल नए संकेतों के अभाव को भी दर्शाती है, क्योंकि निवेशक जून तिमाही के आय सत्र पर नजर लगाए हुए लंबे समय से लंबित भारत अमेरिका व्यापार समझौते के घटनाक्रमों पर नजर भी रखे हुए हैं। सेंसेक्स 345 अंक या 0.41% गिरकर 83,190 पर और निफ्टी 121 अंक या 0.47% गिरकर 25,355 पर बंद हुआ। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज के व्यापक बाजार में मिड कैप सूचकांक में 0.28% की गिरावट आई। हालांकि स्मॉल कैप सूचकांक ने अपनी पिछली गिरावट की कुछ भरपाई की और 0.12% की बढ़त हासिल करने में सफल रहा।
Domestic benchmark indices extended its losing streak for a second consecutive session today, pressured by increased volatility ahead of the weekly derivatives expiry. The market's subdued tone also reflected the absence of fresh triggers as investors looked ahead to the June quarter earnings season and kept an eye on developments in the long-pending India-US trade deal. At close, the Sensex was down 345 points or 0.41% and at 83,190, and the Nifty 50 was down 121 points or 0.47% at 25,355.
और राजेश, अगर सेंसेक्स पैक पर नजर डालें तो आज 30 में से 6 कंपनियों के शेयरों में बढ़ोतरी दर्ज की गई। सबसे ज्यादा लाभ में रहने वाले शेयरों में मारुति 1.36%, टाटा स्टील लगभग 1.04% और बजाज फाइनेंस लगभग 0.7% बढ़े। सबसे ज्यादा गिरावट वाले शेयरों की अगर हम बात करें तो भारती एयरटेल 2.62% से ज्यादा, एशियन पेंट्स 1.9% से ज्यादा और इंफोसिस के शेयरों में 1% से ज्यादा की गिरावट दर्ज की गई।
In sectoral indices of the BSE, 4 out of 21 sectors ended in the negative territory. In the top laggards, BSE Telecommunications dipped 1.11%, BSE Tech slipped 1.17%, and Consumer Durables shed almost 0.4%. Among the top gainers, realty surged 0.69%, metals climbed 0.4%, and utilities increased 0.03%. The overall market breadth at the BSE was negative as shares of 2,064 companies declined, shares of 1,959 companies advanced, while shares of 138 companies remained unchanged. At the National Stock Exchange, 68 companies hit their 52-week high, while 28 hit their 52-week low.
और उदिन अगर हम देखें तो जिस तरह से घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में लगातार दूसरे दिन भी गिरावट दर्ज की गई है, तो मार्केट में क्या लग रहा है आपको कि ये 2 दिन से डाउन जा रहा है?
देखिए, थोड़ी सी अनिश्चितता है। जैसे कि आपने कहा कि संकेत चाहिए, क्यूज की जरूरत पड़ती है। तो कुछ चीजें जो हैं वो जैसे जैसे क्लियर हो जाएंगी तो मार्केट को डायरेक्शन मिलेगा। जैसे ये फर्स्ट क्वार्टर रिजल्ट्स आने लगेंगे आपको, उससे रुझान से मालूम होने लगेगा कि जो एस्टिमेट किए जा रहे थे क्या वो इन लाइन विथ एक्सपेक्टेशन है, तो उससे बेहतर परफॉर्मेंस हो रही है। तो वो एक हिस्सा जरूर है। और जैसे कि आपने सही फरमाया कि वो जो एक ट्रेड डील से जुड़ी हुई बातें हैं वो भी इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि कई लिस्टेड कंपनीज, कई वैसे तो दूसरे देश जो हैं वो अमेरिकी बाजार में एक्सपोर्ट्स के लिए, अपने निर्यात के लिए ज़्यादा डिपेंडेंट है, हम नहीं हैं। पर फिर भी कई लिस्टेड कंपनीज हैं जिनमें जो एक्सपोर्ट्स का जो हिस्सा है वहाँ पे वो इनसिग्निफिकेंट नहीं है, वो इतना है कि उसमें एट द मार्जिन या उससे ज़्यादा मार्केट्स उसको देख के रिएक्ट करेंगे। और हमें ये भी नहीं भूलना चाहिए कि टिपिकली क्या होता है कि अगर अमेरिकी बाजार जो है वो आपके किसी कंपनी के प्रोमिनेंट एक्सपोर्ट मार्केट में से है, तो वो बहुत काफ़ी प्रॉफिटेबल हो जाता है जी, क्योंकि आप डॉलर डिनोमिनेटेड अर्निंग्स आपकी हो रही हैं। तो अनिश्चितताएं हैं, क्योंकि देखिए आप एल्यूमिनियम और स्टील के ऊपर हैं, हम एक और सेट जिसके बारे में बातचीत, वो ट्रेड डील है। इसके अलावा एक फार्मास्यूटिकल के ऊपर एक टैरिफ से के ऊपर निर्णय के बारे में बात करें। जो फार्मास्यूटिकल है वो कोई छोटा अमाउंट नहीं है, वो अच्छा खासा मेरे ख्याल से 7 या 8 बिलियन डॉलर्स के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं। तो ये छोटे छोटे अमाउंट्स बिल्कुल नहीं है, और कई जगह में वो ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाता है। ऑटो पार्ट्स हैं हमारे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है। तो जो लिस्टेड कंपनीज हैं ऑन द मार्जिन वहाँ पे कुछ जगह में आप रीडायरेक्ट कर सकते हैं, जैसे कॉपर के ऊपर है पर दूसरी जगह में नहीं है। तो मतलब एक लाइन में अगर बोला जाए तो वो एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो दिमाग में रह रहा है कि वो वहाँ से क्लैरिटी अगर मिल जाए तो फिर आप निर्णय कर पाएंगे कि एक जो निवेश करना है एक स्टॉक में बने रहना या अधिक खरीदना है, स्टॉक शेयर्स खरीदने हैं, वो उसमें क्या निर्णय होना चाहिए। बिल्कुल।
तो इन्वेस्टर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से अगर हम देखें तो अभी फिलहाल जैसा कि आपने बताया, तो हम क्या कहेंगे अपने इन्वेस्टर से? देखिए,
जब आप निवेश करते हैं तो एक आप इंफॉर्मेशन, डेटा के बारे में बात नहीं करना, आंकड़ों के बारे में नहीं, मैंने उसको आकलन करके आपने निकाला, उसको इन्फॉर्मेशन बनाया, तो इन्फॉर्मेशन के बेसिस पे आप निवेश करते हैं, ना कि आपको कैसी फीलिंग आ रही है, आप नर्वस हो गए या बहुत खुश हो गए, तो इमोशन के ऊपर नहीं करना है। और कई बार क्या होता है, आम निवेशक जो होता है उसको लगता है कि कुछ अगर हुआ है तो उसे कुछ करना है, कुछ ना करना भी एक इम्पॉर्टेंट डिसीजन होता है। तो हर मार्केट में उतार चढ़ाव के में अगर आप एक डिसीजन लेंगे तो आप फुल टाइम मार्केट के ट्रेडर बन जाएंगे। तो निवेशक को ये देखना है कि उनका जो टारगेट है उसके हिसाब से कोई चेंज हो रहा है कि नहीं। जी।
और बढ़ते अगली खबर की ओर, अंतर बैंकिंग विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में आज रुपया डॉलर के मुकाबले 4 पैसे बढ़कर 85 रुपए 69 पैसे पर बंद हुआ। 6 अन्य प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की मजबूती मापने वाला डॉलर सूचकांक दिन के कारोबार में 97.48 पर कारोबार कर रहा था।
But then, would you say that this is a crossover quarter that could change everything? Let's look at the mid caps. They are likely to continue with the Q4 earnings growth momentum, while large caps are likely to slowly improve earnings growth. There is nothing dramatic on the cards. How do you see the movement of the mid cap and the small cap in the broader market?
Well, Rajesh, I'm not very sure how small cap are going to be doing, because it's a motley crew. You have all kinds of people in mid cap and small cap.
Right.
Now, for an investor, it's very important to remember one thing: mid cap and small, while large caps, they have established business models. They things are very what their business model is, how they're going to, where they're going to spend money, where they're going to earn from. So there's a predictability to it. They're large, so they can absorb a lot of stress. Now that cannot be said, the same cannot be said for a small cap and a mid cap. But having said that, yes, you will find people who are doing, they'll be doing their own crossover. There will be lots of mid caps who are so smart and so good and who get so lucky that they'll be basically crossing over to becoming large caps. So an investor basically needs to look for those stories where a small cap is going to become a mid cap and mid cap is going to become a large cap. So that often is the trick. Now, if you can't do that, then there are other ways, smart ways of doing it. You can go through mutual funds or other people who are investing for you. You go through NPS or whatever. So that's one way of looking at it.
Okay, we do have solid macro conditions. Low interest rates, we have abundant liquidity, we have good monsoons, we have inflation coming down, we have interest rates down 100 BPS, but still earnings are not coming. The question is, if they have not come yet, why will they come now?
Yeah, sometimes what happens is, compared to the price of a share, you compare it with the earnings. Okay. Now, what happens is when there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of a large amount of money is chasing comparatively limited supply of shares comparatively. Now, what this kind of period does, it's like Raji, it's like a detox. You fast and there's a detox that happens, or you don't stop eating that or drinking that thing which is not so healthy, and you purge out the harmful things out of your body. So I would say that it's pretty much like that, and maybe some of the stories that based on information wouldn't have been so attractive. You would look at ratios and other things and you probably thought that, oh man, this is a little too overpriced, etc. Now those stories might start looking attractive.
Okay.
The interesting thing about mid cap and small cap, if somebody has got that stomach for it, is that who are these people in this kind of a situation? It's not great. Not every company is doing well, okay, in the real economy, and not every company is doing bad. Typically what happens is if the economy is going in a tailspin, so you mentioned the basics. Now, who are these smart guys who are doing well in not so great times? They are the people who can give you fantastic rewards. Now again, you can do it yourself. You can see, because that is the ultimate, who is handling the crisis better, who's smartly making the moves and making an adjustment. So if tariffs are coming, which is that company who's smart enough and went to another market and made a good adjustment?
So in such a scenario where there is an absence of a fresh trigger, what should the investor be doing? Considering that the June quarter earnings season is here and today was the first result, which was pretty good. And the other thing is, should we continue to keep an eye on the India-US trade deal?
Yeah, I mean...
or is that factored in?
I think if there's a nasty surprise, it may not have been factored. In some cases, probably it is. In some cases, Rajesh, the part that will be affecting the companies is not so big that, say over a period of 5-6 months it will affect. Like the copper news headline that you're getting. That may not...
That is not something that will have an adverse impact on India at all.
But your auto parts, your pharma is seriously important. I mean, if they end up doing what they're talking about doing, that means the whole business model, I mean the strategy in terms of looking at international markets and domestic markets will have to change. Because that is the kind of, I mean, you do well out there and it makes a huge difference to your numbers and how the market looks at you. So those things will change. So I would say these are, one should not be looking at these things. for somebody who's listening to this program, and if they want an opinion from me, I would say that the smartest thing is don't rack your head about what's happening going down sideways. You'll waste a lot of time. Look at something like investing in the index. That means you're investing in India's future. They're the best companies. I'm not talking about these indices that are made by individual institutions. I'm talking about plain Jane, NSE 50, 100, whatever, 200, 250, mid-cap index. And stick to the larger ones, maybe the first 200 top. And just stick to them, and in terms of the weightages. When you invest in something like an index-based, either it's an index fund or an ETF, what happens is, if somebody is not doing well, it will show in the market capitalization. Automatically, the cleaning happens. You don't have to track.
Okay.
So you're always getting the best of the best.
Let's get to the trade deal. Brazil, 50%. Today, we've got Sri Lanka with 30%. Reduced from 44%. What is there on the anvil for India?
Well, one word is interesting. but that apart, on a more focused note, I would say that yes, if there would be inconvenience, because in a deal you have to give and take. So basically what the government will have to do, I can't see any other way, that you cannot not be giving anything to another country and getting something. So if we are going to open up or be helpful to another country, then we have to give something. So there obviously is going to be competition in some areas, and there's going to be things are going to open up. Now the question is, what if the deal doesn't happen? That is what I would look at.
Is there a likelihood of that?
I think
the deadline,
the overall arc of our relationship of the two countries is such that I'm yet to encounter one person who's pessimistic about the deal not happening. Sometimes, what happens, Rajesh, people at the top are very important. They would just push the deal through the finishing line. So when you have the political mojo and whatever initiative, what happens is the bickering that happens in negotiation, which is a must. The big political authorities, they take that. There's the leap of faith comes from them.
I think the team is going to Washington next week.
Absolutely,
and they're going to close the deal.
Yeah, you can expect something to happen, and it's just part. This is the first milestone, Rajesh, by the way. They're going to look at others. Okay. Remember, we are looking at a $500 billion trade. So that's a pretty high benchmark and a target. So there people are going to look at it over the 5-year period rather than, a transactional thing.
और श्रोताओं, अब एक नजर एशिया के शेयर बाजार पर डालते हैं। एशियाई बाजारों में आज जापान के निक्केई को छोड़कर प्रमुख एशियाई बाजारों में सकारात्मक रुख देखने को मिला। दक्षिण कोरिया का कोस्पी सूचकांक 1.55%, हांगकांग का हैंगसेंग 0.57%, चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट 0.47% और सिंगापुर का स्टेट्स टाइम सूचकांक 0.44% बढ़ा। हालांकि जापान का निक्केई 0.44% की गिरावट के साथ बंद हुआ। प्रमुख यूरोपीय सूचकांक की अगर हम बात करें तो दिन के कारोबार में बढ़त के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे। समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक यूरोपीय बाजारों में लंदन का FTSE 100 1.1% से अधिक, फ्रांस का कैक 0.58% और जर्मनी का डैक्स 0.1% बढ़ा है।
US markets rose yesterday as sentiments eased at the Wall Street with expectations of trade negotiations with a number of trading partners. The Dow Jones Industrial Average swung to gains, rising 0.7% to 44,525, whereas the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite gained 1% to 2,621. The surge came with AI chipmaker Nvidia hitting the $4 trillion market capitalization mark shortly after the trading commenced. The broader index, S&P 500, rose 0.66% to 6,266. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has returned to New Delhi after wrapping up his highly productive and successful 5-nation tour to Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, Argentina, Brazil and Namibia. His five-nation tour spanned from 2nd of July to 9th of July. Prime Minister held bilateral talks with the heads of the states of these nations and discussed ways to further strengthen ties. Udin, what are your expectations when it comes to economic benefits for India and with these partner countries?
Oh, there's no doubt. These are all very important countries. And Rajesh, it comes at a very interesting time. You know, almost every country, bar the US, is talking to other countries to diversify their trade basket, you know. So we are looking at new markets which will sort of insulate us from some of these problems that come when you have fewer markets where your exports are concentrated, whether it's imports or your exports. The supply chain resilience that's been talked about is can only happen when you have new countries and new markets from where you import and where you export. So these are important. And then we, of course, Rajesh, we also want to be one of the leaders of the global South. And so these kind of things go hand in hand. And I think this is a very important. Of course, Brazil is really big. They're part of the BRICS, and we are part of that formation. So these are very important sort of exchanges that have happened, and we probably need to maintain the tempo.
Moving on, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has underscored the need for non-banking financial companies, NBFCs, to integrate governance, risk management and customer protection as part of the core beliefs and ethics. Addressing the NBFC's Symposium 2025 in New Delhi, the Finance Minister said the NBFC model matures. The focus on risk management would increase. Ms. Sitharaman highlighted that the fundamentals of the NBFC sector are underpinned by strong capital buffers, robust interest margins and earnings, and low levels of impairment. She noted that asset quality has shown steady recovery since the pandemic, with NBFC sector's gross non-performing assets steadily declined from 6.4% in March 2021 to reach the current level of 3% in March this year.
Financial inclusion cannot be used as a pretext for financial exploitation. Lending should be based on genuine needs and repayment capacity of the customers. Loans should not be aggressively marketed or pushed. These messages are going to be seriously taken because that's what is going to be the underlying strength of NBFCs in the years to come.
Ms. Sitharaman said, financial inclusion cannot be used as a pretext for financial exploitation. She added that financial exploitation in the name of financial inclusion is unacceptable. Udayan, the FM has emphasized that lending should be based on the genuine need and repayment capacity of a customer. That's a very humane approach that she's advocating. And what's your take on that?
That's also a very prudent approach, Rajesh, because as we have seen, the 2008-9 global financial crisis happened when reckless lending happened. And in our country also, when you have lowered the guard in terms of giving loans, then things have become difficult. So the good part is that NBFCs are now within the regulatory ambit. Not now, I mean the regulations out there are becoming more and more robust, and that's what's making them a very viable sort of an option which will supplement banks.
United States has revised its proposed tariffs on imports from Sri Lanka, reducing it from initially threatened 44% to 30% effective 1st of next month. The decision is part of a broader trade policy under President Donald Trump and follows high-level negotiations between the two countries, including talks held in Washington in May this year. More details from our Colombo correspondent.
In a letter addressed to Sri Lanka President Anura Kumar Dissanayaka late last evening, the White House conveyed scaling back of the 44% tariffs imposed earlier in April this year, reducing it to 30%. While the reduction offers some relief, the new tariff is expected to weigh heavily on Sri Lanka's economic recovery, which hinges on export-led growth. The United States is the island nation's largest export destination, particularly for garments, rubber products, tea and seafood. The apparel sector alone employs over 300,000 workers and is likely to be the hardest hit, potentially triggering job losses and a drop in foreign exchange earnings. The impact may further ripple into household incomes and public sentiment. The move may potentially hurt investor confidence also, especially for firms operating in Sri Lanka that export to the United States. For Market Mantra, Ahmed Moin Faruqi from Colombo.
So, what our correspondent is saying that this is going to be a difficult time for the people of Sri Lanka. And what is your take when it comes to the economic repercussions on Sri Lanka?
Absolutely, Rajesh. Whether it's Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, US is one of their major export markets, and particularly the apparel sector. Absolutely, and it's not their export basket is also not diversified. So destination is not diversified, product basket is also not diversified, and both of them are facing forex pressures. Sri Lanka is coming out of it. Bangladesh is under a lot of pressure. So a tariff rate of the numbers that you spoke, that's a serious amount of pressure. So there is going to be a 30%. Fair bit of, there's going to be a fair bit of challenge, because there, you're often on or not, you're competing on the basis of price. It's not as if you're coming up with some standard software where nobody else is making that. These are things where prices change by 30%. I mean, it's, you probably are going to be losing out to somebody. Yeah.
Moving on, the oil prices edged lower on today as investors weighed the potential impact of US President Donald Trump's tariffs on global economic growth. Brent crude was trading over 1% down at $69.46 per barrel, and WTI crude was also trading nearly 1.2% down at $67.54 per barrel when reports last came in.
और अब बात करते हैं सराफा बाजार की, जहां पे सोना आज बढ़त के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था.
Yes, in the Indian bullion market, 24 karat gold was trading over 0.3% down at 97,110 rupees per 10 grams, and silver 999 fine was also trading over 0.9% down at 1,08,390 rupees per kilogram a short while ago.
मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक अगस्त में आपूर्ति किए जाने वाले सोने का वायदा मूल्य 0.28% गिरकर 96,727 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम चल रहा था. वहीं सितंबर में आपूर्ति की जाने वाली चांदी का वायदा मूल्य 0.92% गिरकर 1,08,251 रुपए प्रति किलोग्राम चल रहा था. और उदयन, अगर सोने में आज बढ़त के साथ कारोबार हुआ है, क्या इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए क्या संदेश है आपका?
देखिए, सोना जो है वो आप जो निवेश करते हैं उसका एक छोटा हिस्सा होना चाहिए. 10% से ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. आप ज्वेलरी ना खरीदें. अगर फिजिकल गोल्ड खरीदना है तो कॉइन या बार हो. बेस्ट तो ये है कि आप गोल्ड ETF ही खरीदें, तो रखने का और सिक्योर करके वो रीसेल में लॉस का झंझट भी नहीं है. तो गोल्ड ETFs अगर खरीदते हैं तो वहां वो करना चाहिए. 10% से ज्यादा ना करें. इन टर्म्स ऑफ आउटलुक मुझे लगता है कि ये गोल्ड बेहतर परफॉर्म करेगा आगे चल के, सिंपली बिकॉज जो केंद्रीय बैंक है, सेंट्रल बैंक्स ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड, वो लोग सोने की खरीदारी करें. उनका जो गोल्ड का स्टॉक है, उसके वजह से गोल्ड प्राइसेस में एक स्पाइक आएगा.
और श्रोताओं, अब घड़ी की सुइयां हमें इशारा कर रही हैं कि आपसे विदा ली जाए. उदयन, आप कार्यक्रम में आए और हमसे चर्चा की, इसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और आभार.
धन्यवाद.
Thank you, Dan, for being with us. And before we close the headlines once again, domestic benchmark indices slide for second consecutive day. Sensex drops 345 points, while Nifty settles at 25,355. Most Asian markets end in positive territory today, and crude oil prices edged lower today amid global uncertainty. That's all we have in this edition of Market Mantra. Until tomorrow, goodbye.
नमस्कार.
Market Mantra, Mantra. Market Mantra.